السلام عليكم ورحمة الله وبركاته. بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم. الحمد لله رب العالمين، وأصلي وأسلم على أشرف الأنبياء والمرسلين نبينا Muhammad وعلى آله وصحبه أجمعين. Beloved brothers and sisters in Islam, from the etiquettes of dua, one should raise his hands. Imam al-Suyuti rahimahullah, he says that there are more than 100 different ahadith that mention that Rasulullah sallallahu alayhi wasallam raised his hands when making dua. For example, the hadith of Abu Hurairah radiyallahu anhu, wherein he said, At-Tufayl ibn Amr came to Rasulullah sallallahu alayhi wasallam and he said, Inna dawsan asad, fad'u Allah alayha. Verily Daws have disobeyed, so make dua to Allah Jalla wa Ala against them. So Abu Hurairah radiyallahu anhu, he says, فاستقبل القبلة ورفع يديه فقال اللهم اهد دوسا. So Rasulullah sallallahu alayhi wasallam faced the Qibla and he raised his hands. Thereafter he said, O Allah, guide Daws. In another hadith, the hadith of Aisha radiyallahu anha, which is recorded in Sahih Muslim, when she was speaking about al-kusuf, the eclipse, wherein Rasulullah sallallahu alayhi wasallam made dua, she said, ثُمَّ رَفَعَ يَدَيْهِ يَدْعُو. Rasulullah sallallahu alayhi wasallam raised his hands and made dua. Abu Hurairah radiyallahu anhu, when speaking about Fath Makkah and how Rasulullah sallallahu alayhi wasallam made dua, he said, فَرَفَعَ يَدَيْهِ وَجَعَلَ يَدْعُو. And he raised his hands and he began to make dua. There are many ahadith that show us Rasulullah sallallahu alayhi wasallam raised his hands. That is why in a hadith which is recorded by Imam al-Tirmidhi and Imam Abu Dawood, from the hadith of Salman al-Farisi radiyallahu anhu, he says that Rasulullah sallallahu alayhi wasallam said, Inna rabbakum hayyun كريم يستحيي من عبده إذا رفع يديه إليه أن يردهما صفرا. Verily your Rabb is very shy and he is very kind. When a servant happens to raise his hands up to Allah Jalla wa Ala, Allah Jalla wa Ala feels shy to return him empty-handed. So these ahadith show us the importance and the virtues of raising one's hands. In a hadith which is recorded in Sahih al-Bukhari and Sahih Muslim, from the hadith of Anas ibn Malik radiyallahu anhu, he says that Rasulullah sallallahu alayhi wasallam, كان النبي صلى الله عليه وسلم لا يرفع يديه في شيء من دعائه إلا في الاستسقاء. Rasulullah sallallahu alayhi wasallam, he never raised his hands up in any dua except when it came to asking for rain. Some ulama from this hadith, they mention that one should only raise his hands up when asking for rain. But what about all the other ahadith that show us that Rasulullah sallallahu alayhi wasallam raised his hands and he made dua? When he wanted to make dua, he raised his hands. If we look at those ahadith, we find that in some ahadith it is mentioned that Rasulullah sallallahu alayhi wasallam raised his finger. In some ahadith it is mentioned he raised his hands. In some ahadith it is mentioned he raised his hands so much that you could see the whiteness on his side by his armpit. Ibn Abbas radiyallahu anhuma, when speaking about this, he said that when one is making dua ul-mas'alah, when one is asking Allah Jalla wa Ala for something, he raises his hands in line with his shoulders and he makes dua. When one is making istighfar, or it is also said al-ikhlas, he raises his finger, as was the practice of Rasulullah sallallahu alayhi wasallam. And when one is in al-ibtihal, or there is severe need, for example at the time of drought, you find that Rasulullah sallallahu alayhi wasallam would raise his hands so much that you could see the whiteness on his side. So when it comes to the hadith of Anas ibn Malik radiyallahu anhu, the ulama mention that he is not saying that Rasulullah sallallahu alayhi wasallam didn't raise his hands at all. What he is saying, Rasulullah sallallahu alayhi wasallam, when making dua for rain, that was the only dua wherein he used to raise his hand so much that you could see the whiteness on his side by his armpit. So it is important we should follow the sunnah of Rasulullah sallallahu alayhi wasallam when it comes to raising hands. And where Rasulullah sallallahu alayhi wasallam raised his hands normally, we raise our hands normally. Where he used his finger, we also use our finger. Or where he raised his hands so much that you could see the whiteness on his side, we do the same. From the benefits or from the virtues when one raises his hands, as we mentioned, Allah Jalla wa Ala, He feels shy to return him empty-handed. Also, one acknowledges that Allah Jalla wa Ala is the most kind and He is most merciful. He acknowledges that Allah Jalla wa Ala is seeing him. Allah Jalla wa Ala has knowledge of every single thing. Also, he acknowledges that Allah Jalla wa Ala is all high. There is nothing that is above him. That is why Allah Jalla wa Ala says in the Quran, هو الأول والآخر والظاهر والباطن. Rasulullah sallallahu alayhi wasallam, when making dua, as recorded in Sahih al-Bukhari and Sahih Muslim, he would say, Allahumma anta al-awwalu falaysa qablaka shay. Oh Allah, you are al-awwal. There is nothing before you. In other words, you are always there. Wa anta al-akhiru falaysa ba'daka shay. And you are al-akhir. There is nothing after you. In other words, everything will come to an end. But Allah Jalla wa Ala will always be there. So Allah Jalla wa Ala was always there from the very beginning. And He will always be there. Thereafter, He said, وَأَنْتَ الظَّاهِرُ فَلَيْسَ فَوْقَكَ شَيْءٍ. And you are al-Zahir. There is nothing that is above you. In other words, Allah Jalla wa Ala is all high. That is why when one makes dua, he automatically raises his hands where? Down to the right, down to the left? No. He raises his hands up towards al-ulu. He raises his hands up towards the sky. Because Allah Jalla wa Ala is all high. There is nothing that is above Him. As He mentions in 7 places in the Quran, ثُمَّ اسْتَوَى عَلَى الْعَرْشِ. Then Allah Jalla wa Ala established Himself on the arsh. In other words, He is on the arsh. We believe in the asma and the sifat of Allah Jalla wa Ala as they are. That is why in many ahadith we find Rasulullah sallallahu alayhi wasallam would point towards al-ulu. When he asked the people, have I conveyed? They said yes. Then he said, oh Allah, bear witness. And he raised his finger up. When it comes to raising one's hands when making dua, there are many mistakes that certain people make. Sometimes people, what they do, they raise their hands, but when raising their hands, they raise them but in a way that they show no care. So they put their hands below the navel, for example. Other people, they make big gaps between their fingers. And other people, when making dua, they move their hands around from right to left and up and down. Other people, they kiss their hands when making dua. All these things, they did not come in the sunnah of Rasulullah sallallahu alayhi wasallam. Also a common mistake that people make when saying ashhadu an la ilaha illallah wa ashhadu anna muhammadan abduhu wa rasuluh in salah, they raise both fingers. Rasulullah sallallahu alayhi wasallam saw a man raising both fingers and he told him not to do that. So what we learn is when it comes to raising the hands, we raise our hands in the same way Rasulullah sallallahu alayhi wasallam would raise his hands. At the positions or the places wherein Rasulullah sallallahu alayhi wasallam raised his hands, we raise our hands. We follow the sunnah when it comes to the the raising of the hands, and when it comes to all the matters of our deen. We ask Allah Jalla wa Ala to grant us goodness, to forgive us, to forgive our parents, to forgive our mashayikh, to forgive all the Muslimin, those who are alive and those who have passed away. Subhanakallahumma wa bihamdik, ashhadu an la ilaha illa ant, astaghfiruka wa atubu ilayk. Allahumma salli wa sallim ala abdika wa rasulika nabiyyina Muhammad wa ala alihi wa sahbihi ajma'in.